So hopefully by now you have had a read of the information about organisational structures, and you've had a look at some key terms, namely chain of command and span of control. So I just wanted to have a quick talk to you about that to make sure we get it. So organisational structures, remember I said they're kind of like a family tree. So you can see these images. These are just random examples from the internet of some organisational structures. And I'll put it into present mode so it's a bit bigger. Alright, so we can see here we've got sort of who's at the top of the tree all the way down to the bottom. So if we're looking at our span of control and our chain of command, it's quite clear visually who's above who and what their span is. So who are they looking after and that kind of thing. So first thing to consider is management levels. And again, this is a picture from your textbook. And it's explaining we've got a pyramid, and basically each one of those colors would be a level of employment. So if we look at the very top of our pyramid is our top level management, our CEO. And then there'd be different rungs under that, and then we get to the middle of the pyramid and we have mid-level management. So they're like your head of the department. And then we go all the way down to the bottom. And remember, this is just management levels. And we get to our lower level management, so like our supervisors. And of course, under this pyramid would then be all your normal staff. So if we were to look, maybe you've got a job, let's use Mac as an example. The people that are running your shift, so if you've got a problem, you need a refund, that kind of thing, the people that are there are probably just your low-level management. They're just supervisors. You might have a manager that works fairly regular hours or something and might not always be there when you're there. So that might be like the store manager. And then you've got, of course, your CEO. So as we go up, we think you've got like a state manager that might drop in once a month and have a check on your store. And we obviously have national managers. And as we go up the ranks, we've got more and more higher levels. Probably the less you might see that person because they're in another office or whatever. So this is really important, not only when we're learning organisational charts, but when we just think business in general, because this person's job, their everyday role, what they're in charge of, that kind of thing is going to be very different to even this person. And who they need to talk to, who they deal with. When we've looked at planning, the type of planning this person does compared to what this person, it's all going to be different depending on where they are in this level. Just to recap, and I hope you've got these in your books because they're good terminology to have. We've got chain of command, which is the strict line of authority that extends from the top, so up here, of the pyramid to the lower level. And span of control is the number of workers that a manager controls directly. And if we look at these, the number of workers, we look at this team leader here, they're looking after supervisors and operatives. So we can see very clearly over here who they are looking after. What I thought I would do is show you a picture of my old hotel. So this is a very rough drawing, and it's not perfect because there's so many different departments and everything that it was too hard to fit it on the paper. But it will give you an idea. Hopefully you can see that because it's a little bit faint. So at the top here we have the general manager of the hotel. Obviously he actually had bosses above him, but they weren't on site at the hotel. So on the hotel he is the top dog. Under him, all on the same level as each other, were the directors. Now the directors are each in charge of their own department. So this one's sales and marketing, food and beverage, finance and HR. Under them you've then got all your different next level of managers. So we had marketing managers, we had event managers, sales manager. I just couldn't fit it in there, so it's up there as well. We had a head chef, we had a restaurant manager, we had the finance manager. Under HR, we had the training manager, okay? And all of these people, it was interesting, in this particular hotel, you could look at pay scales, and each of these were accurately along a line, and they were in a range of pay that each level of management should be getting paid. So it was pretty clear to see who's sort of equal to who across a very vastly different job role. They were considered equal. Interestingly, if you haven't yet noticed, on this one here, there is no director, but you have two managers that are equal, and they sit up here with the rest of these guys. So in our rooms division, which is where I worked, we didn't have a director of rooms, which is for big hotels quite a common position, but for littler hotels, they try and not have one because it can actually save money. These guys are sitting on sort of $100,000 or so. So if you can eliminate one of them, then that means you're saving the hotel every year at least $100,000. So they didn't have one of them. They went straight to front office and housekeeping managers. So if we look at our span of control, there was no one controlling here. So the general manager actually had to talk directly to the front office manager or the housekeeping manager when he needed something to do with rooms. The other interesting thing is these two people really had to, I guess, extra communication and sort their issues out together because they didn't have, I guess, the guy at the top to sort of go to and ask questions or say, oh, the housekeeping manager's not doing what I want or anything like that, because it was directly the general manager. So they didn't really want to disturb him unless they had to. And then you can see, I haven't broken this up very well, but you'll get the idea. There was certain levels of chefs, and then you got all the way down to the stewards who are the dishwashers. You've got restaurant managers now. There was several restaurants, so you'd have several different team leaders. You'd have a few supervisors and lots of different wait staff broken up across departments. So you had the bar, you had a restaurant, you had the pool bar, you had room service, all those. So they had lots of different little subcategories. And finance, you had someone that took the money and also paid money. They're two different things. So accounts receivable is money the hotel is owed. Payable is like paying the accounts of the hotel that the hotel owed money to. And then you had someone underneath them who was just doing like sort of the paperwork. So you can see when we have a basic diagram like this, we can kind of see who reports to who sort of is in charge of the person, and where their lines of communication sort of run to. Now, interestingly, to compare, we're going to stick with front office, but just so you get the idea, you can have what they call quite a flat organizational hierarchy, or you can have a very one that's got lots and lots of layers. And I just want to give you this example. So we're going to not worry about the whole hotel. We're just going to worry about basically the front office, which is the thing that I was involved in, so I know it best. But on this side is a zoomed in version of my hotel. So that's sort of what we've already talked about. Remembering this one had 243 rooms. This one had close to, I think, about 500, 600 rooms. So they're at least double the size hotel, much bigger hotel, a lot more people coming to stay, all of that kind of thing. So if you look here, we've got our general manager sitting at the top, but straight away you can see the difference is that there's a director of rooms for this hotel. This one, there isn't. Underneath the director of rooms is your front office manager and your housekeeping manager. Now, I haven't bothered to write all the other positions down because we don't need them for this. But obviously he has some other staff underneath, and so does this one. We're just not looking at them. So the director of rooms is directly keeping in check the front office manager and the housekeeping manager for this hotel. But as I've mentioned before, over here in my hotel, we didn't have a director of rooms. So these guys are communicating directly to the GM. So it's a lot more flat already. We've already eliminated one level of management in that hotel. Under the front office manager was a duty manager, and this was me. Okay, so there's 5 in this hotel. There's 5 duty managers, all on rotating shifts, but all equal. Underneath them, sometimes we had a team leader, sometimes we had a supervisor. It wasn't a permanent position all the time. It kind of was a bit flexible, but that's another story. And then underneath them, again, across a few different departments, but just to keep it quite simple, you had concierge, the people you booked your activities with, porters who carried your bags, people answering the telephones, people checking people in, all of those kinds of things, all in sub-departments, but for this, we're not going to show that. But basically, you get it, that there's a front office manager, there's a duty manager, there's maybe a supervisor, and then there's the front of house staff, the front line. That's your main first point of contact with staff, with customers kind of staff. Okay, so you can see that from, if you're getting your first job, you've got potentially 1, 2, 3 managers before you get to the top dog. Okay, so if you you've only got 3 managers buffering you till you are talking to the general manager. Over in this hotel, we have our director of rooms, then we have the front office manager, then they have an assistant manager, so that's one other guy that's sub off that person. Then they have the duty manager. So already we can see we've got rid of director of rooms over here, and we also got rid of this position. So no assistant manager. We go straight to duty manager. So there's already 2 levels of management that this hotel over here doesn't have. They then had several team leaders across telephones, the desk, the porters. So they had lots of different team leaders. They then had supervisors. So they definitely had both. Then underneath them, they had front of house staff. So if you're, again, that frontline staff member, your first job, you have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 managers before you even come near the general manager. So you've got 6 levels of management versus 3. So you can imagine this hotel didn't need a bigger organizational hierarchy because of the size of the hotel. But you can imagine the lines of communication for this hotel are quite different. The chain of command is different. The span of control, like this guy here, has these guys to look after. But this one, the general manager is worrying directly about these 2, whereas this general manager, all he is talking to is the director of rooms, expecting that he is then looking after his department. I hope this is making sense. The other interesting thing from a personal point of view, from my experience, was as a duty manager in this hotel, if this guy was away, which of course 2 times a week, he was always away, holidays, that kind of thing, we were suddenly directly reporting to the top dog of the entire hotel. And the way even our offices were set up was this guy's office was directly behind my desk. So every day that I was at work, I would see him continuously. He was always there with us because it was very flat. So there wasn't those layers buffering us. We had a very close relationship because there was no one else really in that levels of management. It was us and him, okay? Where this guy, here's the duty managers here. They've got 3 other managers in front of them before the general manager. So these duty managers in this hotel probably had a lot less to do with their general manager than these duty managers here. And it's just the style of management and again, the organizational hierarchy is different. Interestingly, as a duty manager here, I often had to go, because this guy was away, remember these guys are sharing a lot of the work that in this hotel this guy would be doing. So as a duty manager, when these were away, this person was doing what this person is doing. So it gave us a lot of different experience because we would have to attend meetings and things that normally a director of rooms would attend, but in our hotel these people had to attend it instead because we didn't have a director of rooms. So it's got lots of different implications for across the business. It's financial, we don't have to pay as many levels of management. It's communication, this was a lot more direct, a lot more close-knit. This one had a lot more levels of management to pass a message down through. The direct supervision is a lot less in this hotel. This is probably more micromanaged, where these staff definitely had a little bit probably more independence because there wasn't as many managers to fall back on. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of how an organizational chart can be very different in different hotels or different businesses. Okay, so there you go. There's a good picture of a very basic description of an organizational hierarchy for a business.